summer of 2021, my roommate and other co-founder and best friend, Ben, we started a podcast and it's called the Adapt or Die podcast. We wanted to get this out to more people, but Ben was responsible for creating the clips. I was responsible for posting them, and he hated it. Every time we'd come in and record, he would say, dude, this is a waste of my time. We're both engineering majors. He was like, I got to work on this homework and stuff. And then I was just being lazy. We were thinking, oh, it'd be great if we just build some AI. At the time, I had read about AI, but I didn't really know anything. I was like, how hard could it be? You just call a couple APIs, But then it wasn't until our second year, February 2022 is when we really put the team together. When we brought on Z, we're like, okay, we're going to be so focused on trying to solve this technically. We're going to need someone to help run the business. Launched in December 2nd. And to now have gotten our first customer by the end of January in just 2 months, which it said it usually takes about 3 to maybe 18 months, was it was just kind of mind blowing. But it just tells us that we really found a real problem that people really have. And just overall it's exciting.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Custom Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Baines. This show is all about introducing you all to successful Black and Latino STEM professionals, and then also helping you guys have a successful career in STEM. Today, we're going to be talking to a very special guest, Armel Talla. He is a student at the University of Texas, Austin, studying computer science. He is also a co-founder of ClipsAI. Me as a podcast host, I can really appreciate the product that he's made. He allows you to take long-form content and uses AI to automatically break it up into micro pieces of content, which you can then share on social media. So very excited to learn about Armel, his journey to creating and becoming a founder, and also what the future looks like. And hopefully you guys are getting value. Let's go ahead and get started and jump right into it. Armel, how you doing today, man? What's going on, bro?
Pretty good. Can't complain. First day of classes back after the winter storm in Austin. Well, if you want to call it a winter storm.
Yeah, definitely put air quotes around that. In Texas, the winter storm looks a lot different from anything up north or on the East Coast, but I'm glad you guys survived. But man, thanks again for joining me today. I'm really excited to learn about your journey. I kind of already talked a little bit about ClipsAI. It's a great platform. I really enjoyed using it over the past month, I would say. But kind of tell the people a little bit about the platform and what you guys have created.
Yeah, kind of like you mentioned, really good explanation of it. But we take long form content and automatically turn it into social media clips using machine learning. So a lot of really cool things we do right now. We're kind of in alpha testing, and we're focused on just being able to segment videos and quality segmentation of your content, right? So starting and stopping at the right times where you don't need to adjust anything, but still giving the user the ability to do that. And the next is another big problem of resizing it, right? You have this 16:9 video, you want to take it by 9:16, but that's also a pain. So we're working on using AI to help do that. And then, last throwing captions. So that's some of the few things that we do, but really just trying to streamline as much of the distribution process of taking long form content and just helping you get the word out there about the awesome things that you're creating.
Nice, man. I'm excited because editing is the worst part of being a content creator. It takes a lot of time to convert these full-length podcast episodes into social media clips. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been completely neglecting TikTok and Instagram. So this will help me out a lot moving forward. I'm really curious though, what got you interested in solving this problem, right? You're studying computer science at the University of Texas, Austin. You've been able to work on a team with 2 other great co-founders. What got you guys really interested and passionate about solving this problem that content creators have?
Yeah, so it's because one, simply, I'm a content creator myself. So during my first year of college, my roommate and other co-founder and best friend, Ben, we started a podcast, and it's called the Adapt or Die podcast. And the idea of it was that we believe that lifelong learning was just the best way for someone to really live their life. And we wanted to share that with more people our age, because the reason why me and Ben clicked so hard was because we were just both obsessed about self-improvement. I mean, we were hanging out just on the bleachers on the where you would play soccer or whatever, right, at our school, and we were just sitting there talking about the best ways to stretch, and he was just breaking it down to me, and I was like, yo, bro, you really it was a great, and we just kind of bonded over that. And just and so what we do on our podcast, we read books, and then we would explain the best ideas of the books on there. And so we wanted to get this out to more people, but Ben was responsible for creating the clips. I was responsible for posting them, and he hated it. Every time we'd come in and record, he would say, dude, this is a waste of my time. We're both engineering majors. He was like, I got to work on this homework and stuff. And then I was just being lazy. I would never like post them on time. He would give me back about like 21 clips because we wanted to post 3 a day. So it was just a super time consuming process, but we loved doing the podcast and we kept doing it. But it got to the point where we're like, okay, there either has to be a solution out there, which there wasn't at the time, or we're going to have to build it. It's just like our engineering minds were like, okay, there's probably a way we can solve this. And that's kind of what got us into it.
I mean, that's great. And I think it's a great process for you guys to kind of figure out what you're interested in and what problem you're passionate about solving. And then, of course, using your engineering problem solving mindset to address that. And I can definitely resonate with Ben. I mean, I hate editing. It's definitely the worst part. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the next iteration of this project that you guys are working on. But talk to me about the life as a CEO while being a college student, right? Like, the startup world and community has really been like glamorized, and it's like this really sexy, like mystical thing that's like really awesome. But I'd imagine it's also kind of stressful because college is a time where you're, especially as an engineering major, you're having a lot of homework. So that can be very time consuming, but then also you want to party and have fun or join a fraternity, whatever the case may be. So kind of tell me, like, for you, how was this journey as a CEO while being in college?
I would say the easiest way to describe or summarize like my experience was like understanding what sacrifice really is. Kind of like you mentioned, like the life of a startup founder seemed to be glamorized, especially in the environment we were before, where like the market was super hot. You could start any idea, even if it wasn't solving a real problem, and you could raise money and stuff like that. But now we're in a different time. But just in general, like being a student, like very much most of us want to do what other people are doing because it's like, oh, like, I see my friends doing it, or like these group of people they're doing and I'm cool with them. But we kind of had to realize that this was something that we really wanted to do and we were serious about it. It meant that we couldn't act like everybody else. We couldn't go out to the parties on every weekend. So it was really having to reflect and being like, do you guys want to take this journey together? Sign up for a 10 to 20 year roller coaster ride, which it's already been, right? I wouldn't say I'm a person that gets stressed easily, but I'll say that ever since I started the startup, like I wake up in the morning and all I think about is like, dude, how are we going to make it the next day, right? Like, how are we going to like last through this really, because we're in a very competitive market. And so it's really been a lot about sacrificing, still try to like, make sure I keep like the people that are really close to me and like keeping the social life more on like keeping the connections with like my real close friends. And that was another thing of like also figuring out like who's really there for you, especially when you like start to have a focus on one thing. But also then the last thing I would say is like bonding with each other. We really got close. We were already best friends before this. Like we met playing basketball my freshman year. But it was kind of like, okay, like we're kind of signing up to marry each other because we're going to spend that much time together and we're going to be solving like a really, really big problem together. And so it's been a lot of sacrifices, man.
Yeah, I'd imagine, man. I mean, I remember like toga parties and all kinds of parties throughout the year and all these exciting events. And, a lot of people are just focused on, hey, having a good time, having the best social life they can while in college. I mean, you three guys are crazy enough to decide, hey, this is the time we want to sacrifice and like really look at the next 10, 20 years of our life. And I say crazy because most people don't have that level of maturity mentally while being in college. But I think it's a great idea for you guys to really grow yourself, not only socially, but then also professionally. And the work that you're putting in is going to go a long way. Most college students are really only focused about like getting a good grade, getting a good job. Like you guys are like thinking about like legacy and impact for a 10 and 20 year horizon. So that's really good. I'm really curious. You have like a lot of books on the bookshelf back there. And I feel like you're like been indoctrinated by like Gary Vee and like all these other motivational speakers. What kind of content are you consuming like on a personal level? Because you seem very structured and organized. So I'm just curious, like who are some of your inspirations and who are you kind of consuming content wise?
Yeah, that's interesting because like I would say who I am today kind of started like I think it was my senior year of high school. I was really getting into like personal finance and learning about it because my parents worked so hard to get me here, being immigrant parents, but like they weren't going to pay for my school. So kind of having that realization that I'm going to have to figure out how to pay off my loans. It was like, okay, like I should probably learn about personal finance. So I first started watching Graham Stephan. I think he's like the intro
Oh
to
yeah.
all personal finance, right? So I first started watching him and then it kind of evolved to being like, for a second, I went into a dark place, not like actually dark, but like looking up those like drop shipping things of like trying to make money quick because I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know like making real money takes a long time. Um, But yeah, so then once I got into college, it really just became about, it was a lot about just like startups. So one of my favorite channels now, this is when I knew that I was like the way I like to describe it to my friends is I'm a business major that was smart and decided to learn a real skill. So I decided to go major in computer science. But most of my free time, I'm watching videos like this one channel called Economics Explained, just explaining like what happens to the economy. Another channel that's really great is the Modern NDA. Just
Mm.
a lot of business stuff. I find it really, I don't know, I find business strategy very interesting. But nowadays, especially kind of leading up to this, I've always known I wanted to be a founder. But it's a lot of like startup stuff, so like SaaStr, 20 VC. So that's a lot of the content that I'm like consuming now.
Nice. And I like that. I'm a fan of 20 VC as well. I think that's a great example of like mindset and then leveraging the podcast and opportunities around you to progress your career and take advantage of different opportunities, which in a way you guys have kind of done something similar. You started a podcast and then you leverage that to solve a problem within the podcasting content creation space. You kind of talked about the next level for ClipsAI in terms of being able to create 9x16 content or vertical content. Also looking at captions. And then I think there was one other piece of that. What was the third part of that equation?
It was improving the quality of the clips, just
Okay,
making it like really, really good.
gotcha. Okay, cool. What's like the long-term end goal vision that you have for ClipsAI? Is it staying in the content creation space? What do you guys kind of envision, or what do you envision?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it would be hard to say, and it'd be a lie if like to say that I had a clear vision. Because all we knew was that there was this one problem we wanted to solve, and it was so clear of like the product that we wanted for ourselves, right? Um, and but over time, we kind of had to think like, why would you do this for 10 to 20 years, right? It's like it doesn't seem from the surface level that impactful that you are creating a tool that helps people post more on social media, especially with the stigma around like, oh, social media is not good for you, da, 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 da. But when we took a step back and like thought about why we built this, and it was because we wanted to share what we were learning to other people, right? And kind of like I mentioned with 20 VC and even your podcast, there are so many great people that are like getting this information that they otherwise would not have because of content creation, because you decided to pick up a microphone and start recording. And if we're able to build something that enables people to like reach a bigger audience, that's just like, that's the impact right there. So we're not maybe the ones solving climate change, but we are, enabling someone that's talking about climate change. That's then really like giving information and knowledge to the next set of founders that are going to tackle those bigger problems, right? But long-term wise, I think from a company's point of view, like obviously start where we, start in our origins as content creators and helping out that scene. We think that long-term to stay a business, like where you're really going to get the most paying customers is like the marketing and media agencies. But even further out than that, we're really into AI. I think that's like the hot thing to say nowadays, especially with OpenAI popularity. But we want to advance the way people create content and advance how AI can help us do that. And especially with video content, I think OpenAI has done a great job in advancing like the text, but I think there's so much that we can do within the video and like audio space with AI. So that's like the longer term vision.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that's a good point. I think video is king in terms of content. I think that's like the most impactful and most entertaining for a lot of people. So I think there's a really big opportunity for you guys there. I didn't touch on this earlier, but when did you guys, you're a junior now currently or a third year at UT. When did you guys first start this project?
Yeah. So it was interesting. So like I mentioned, I started our podcast my first year, and we really ran into the problem like as towards the end of that. And so it was the summer of 2021 when the idea first came of like, oh, like it started kind of like a side project. We were thinking, oh, it'd be great if we just like, build some AI. At the time I had read about AI, but I didn't really know anything. I was like, how hard could it be? Like you just call a couple APIs, call it a day. For those that don't know, that's like the stuff that you call to help like run your program or whatever to keep it simple. But and we're like, okay, yeah, that'd be pretty simple. But then it wasn't until our second year. So that was February 2022 is when we really like put the team together. When we brought on Z, we're like, okay, we're going to be so focused on like trying to solve this technically. Like we're going to need someone to help run the business side of things. And so we brought on Z to help us out. And that's when we started.
Good stuff, man. I think you kind of mentioned your team a few times now. And it seemed like you've understood that the team is really important and critical to your success. And you guys have really built a strong relationship even within this 2 to 3 years that you guys have been knowing each other. How have you guys kind of figured out how to work with each other, and how did you kind of identify, hey, Ben is the perfect guy to have as a co-founder, or V is a perfect person that can kind of help us with like the operations and things like that? How did you really kind of build your team and figure out who's the right fit for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really think like the biggest part of my job is to build a really, really great team. And Ben, like, we've been working together on the podcast since our first year, and we kind of over time learn how to deal with each other, but we're very much like straight up honest people. Like, we tell each other how it is, and we always want to see the best, right, for one another. It's like, because everything we do is towards kind of like this never ending, it kind of sounds bad, but this never ending like desire to always want to get better. And so just knowing that he had that burning passion, and like, he's much smarter than me when it comes to like the actual technical side. Like, I'm technical, but like he's like technical. And he, before too, I want to give background. Like, he was a mechanical engineering major. Like, he switched his major to computer engineering this year, but he built the model, our machine learning model, without ever really taking any real like computer engineering classes. He did know how to code a little bit, but nothing like crazy. So just kind of knowing like his capacity, his ability to like focus, and just was like, he's better than me. Like, he's just like, if you're talking about someone that's an operator, because that's kind of something we always joked about. He was like, you're kind of like the person that comes up with like the vision of like, okay, what are we going to do? Because I was always do that for like the podcast. And he was the one that was really always in the background doing the nitty gritty, like the editing and stuff like that. And so we kind of always had this great dynamic where I was kind of like, he'd always be like, dude, you be the face. I want to be the guy in the background. And he's just the operator. And then V, just playing basketball with him, like, super competitive. And then just a super hard worker. And like, he's a dude on the court, like, you're 5 games in and he's still running up and down like full speed. And you're like, dude, how are you doing this? He's like, bro, tired is just a mindset. And so kind of just knowing that, like, he was a dog, like, he would work really hard, but he also wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was the big thing, was like, I want someone that wants to have control of their life and wants freedom in their life. And so it just kind of made sense right when we were like, okay, this is something we want to do for real. Like, Fee was just the perfect person. But yeah, we all just perfectly fit into kind of role. It was kind of weird. For a time, we didn't know exactly like how we all would fit in. But as we just went through things, everything just kind of fell in place, and it became pretty clear like what we were all good at.
Nice. Okay. We already kind of touched on long-term vision for ClipsAI, which I think you got a really great idea. What, though, would you say is like your exit strategy? If somebody came and they had a bag for you three and they're like, yo, you ain't got to work no more. You don't have to go to school no more. You can cut a check to your parents and y'all are good. You selling, or you in it for the long haul? What do you think? What's the exit strategy for you?
No, we don't have an exit strategy. I think if a great offer comes, right? I mean, because we would hope that we can build something. I think chasing certain numbers and like is kind of arbitrary, right? Like, what makes a good company, but for the simplicity, we would hope to become a unicorn or greater. So the offer would have to be like much better than that. But really, for us, we don't have an exit strategy. We want to build a really great company and have as much impact on the world as we can, and really advance AI. Like, that's a big thing. I think to make the vision more clear, like, we want to become a platform at some point where other developers, other creators can easily go in and create their own tools that allows them to, provide something to the world that makes video editing, video creation, and especially distribution of information a lot easier. So as long as I can do this, I'll try to do it until I get tired, but it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I really, from talking to you, I couldn't see you or your co-founders selling or whatever. I feel like you guys would get bored too easy. And if you did go that route, I feel like you guys would like immediately just be serial entrepreneurs and start looking for the next problem to kind of dive into. Before we kind of round out the entrepreneurship discussion, I'm curious if you can give some advice, some feedback in terms of things that you've learned or recommendations you would make to current or aspiring entrepreneurs, whether they're in college or wherever they're at currently. What words of advice or words of wisdom would you give?
So a couple. The kind of cliche, if you watch a lot of like Y Combinator videos, they'll tell you this is like, try to solve a problem that you have, right? I think a lot of people, especially now, like, we haven't really done too much ourselves, but we're kind of starting to build a name for ourselves on campus. And a lot of people come to us asking us about like startup ideas or give them feedback on what they're working on. And kind of the thing I usually see is people aren't really solving a problem most of the times. They're just kind of like throwing something at the wall, being like, this would sound like a good startup idea. Let's do it. Right. And I would say just, don't force anything. Let the idea come to you. Let the problem, because I didn't know ClipsAI would be what I like would want to work on. I just kind of in the background knew I wanted to be a founder, but it wasn't until we ran into the problem. And even after we ran into the problem, it took us about like like a year or maybe 6 months to, decide that this was actually going to be a startup. And then the second is, and this is something I've been preaching. If you ever want to go back and listen to like our podcast, like really understanding who you are as a person. I think one of the hardest questions, and it's such a simple question that I had to ask myself was, what do you find fun? Like
Yeah.
you alone, like by yourself, take away your friends, just you, you by yourself. What are you going to do? What do you find enjoyable? And you kind of start to realize that a lot of the things that you do isn't actually because you want to do it. And so once you kind of like have a clarity on at least like who you are right now, and who you are changes, it becomes so much easier to then start to decide that, then start to plan and decide the next steps of what you want to do. So maybe being a founder isn't exactly what you want to do, but like if you have clarity on what you enjoy, then it becomes so much easier to like pick something that you like are just as passionate as I am about Clips AI. So that's probably like the two big things.
Yeah, I think that's great advice because I think a lot of people don't spend enough time on that customer discovery part or finding out, hey, what problem are you actually solving and who is your customer? And then even further beyond that, the part about identifying who you are, you have to find something that you're passionate enough about that you can do it each and every day, regardless of if you got paid or not. And of course, the goal is to get paid for it, but you need that level of passion and dedication to pursue it. So I think that's great advice. And I'm glad you guys are starting to get some recognition on campus. I mean, pretty soon, I imagine it'll be even more recognition. So keep at it. So that's kind of putting a bow on the entrepreneurship stuff. I kind of want to get your input on a few other things real quick, mainly in the education space. You got a chance to intern at Google as an intern. Was that last summer or the summer before?
Both summers.
Okay, great. So you've been a couple of times. Hopefully, God willing, maybe you'll go back again this upcoming summer. Can you kind of tell us the story real quick of how you landed that job? Google, Meta, Apple, those are like dream jobs for people. So how did you land the job, the internship at Google?
Yeah, I love this story because it kind of ties back to like when I started my TikTok. So the first TikTok I ever made was me sitting down and I was like, okay, I'm trying to get an internship as a freshman. People were telling me like it was crazy. This was like during the COVID time. And I was like, all right, y'all, put my camera down and said, guys, follow my journey as a freshman. I'm going to try to get an internship. I know it's hard, but I'm going to try. So before then, I had at my school, thankfully, what they did was like they allowed us to have like these pods of like other CS students, but then a mentor, an older student that would kind of like help us navigate the world of getting into college. And so she just kind of said like, yeah, like there's a bunch of these different like programs that you guys can apply to that are for like first year and second year students. And so what I applied to was like Google STEP. And so that's for like first and second year of students. And they highly encourage underrepresented people to apply as well. But, they take all walks from life. And so I just put my application in, not thinking too much of it. At the time, I probably applied to like 40 or 50, right? So a lot of rejections. And then, so it was kind of like not looking good. I was like, okay, I'm probably going to have to go work at a startup in the spring. But then that same day when I posted a TikTok video, I'm driving Uber Eats and I pull up to Panda. I'm about to just check like, okay, what order am I going to get? And I get an email from Google saying, you got the interview. I flipped out. I promised that person almost was not about to get their food, but I was like, you know what? I got to be a good person. I got to go get them their food. I was so excited. I wanted to tell them, but I was like, they don't know me. This is weird. Yeah, so then that's kind of how it happened. Just kind of grinded, documented it. And I think like the big thing that helped me get that internship was like when I got to school my first year, I was like, I want to leave an impact on this school, especially being a Black person that's in STEM and not seeing a lot of people represented. I was like, I want to leave this school and the next Black student coming in, next computer science major coming in, like there was someone that walked the same path as them and that did something impactful. So I started a club at my school about machine learning. And I think putting that on my resume, showing that initiative, that drive I had to start a machine learning club while I was a freshman and like getting like 12 people to sign up for it, definitely probably made me stand out in my application.
Man, that's great. And that's very inspiring, man. I definitely would have left the food at Panda. Would have been like, man, F that food. Like I got well, you didn't even get the job at that point, but you know, the excitement kicks in. So kind of hard to contain yourself. So I'm glad that worked out for you. For the Google Step program, do you have to be a student at a certain university, or is it kind of open to all college students? Do you remember?
It's all open to all college students. Met a bunch of people from like schools that that aren't the Ivy Leagues and stuff like that. So it's open to all college students.
Okay, nice. Are you able to kind of ballpark how much money people can kind of make as an intern at Google? I don't want to get you
Yeah,
in trouble if you plan on going back, but I mean, it will definitely be appreciated.
no, I'm open to it, man. I don't, like I love the job and I'm going back this summer, so hopefully don't fire me because they did layoffs and I haven't heard anything back yet, but I still can log into the portal, so I think I'm good.
You're probably
But
good.
yeah, no, my first year it was crazy. Like when I tell you computer science just changed my perspective of like actually what like how much wealth and money there is out there in the world, but you just have to get the right skills in order to obtain it. Um, I was getting paid $36 my first summer an hour. And then the next summer I was getting paid, I believe it was 42. And this is like entry
Intern.
barrel intern. Obviously it's at a really, cash rich company. So it varies depending on what company you go to, but like, yeah, it was pretty life changing. So much so my mom was like, that's how much I was making when I started off as a nurse, a little bit more too. So, life changing opportunity.
Nice. Are there any other perks that come with the internship? Like, I'm assuming you have to go to the Bay Area. Is that the case? Like, do they give you like housing, or do you pay for that on your own, or anything else you remember?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So my first year was over COVID, so I didn't get to do. But my
Uh,
second year, you actually could go to the Bay. Google is one of the companies that doesn't provide housing, but they give you a $9,000 relocation bonus, to help out with like finding housing. But if you go to the Bay, $3,000 a month for rent still isn't enough, which is crazy to me. This is
wow,
absolutely ridiculous.
that's wild. Okay. All right. Gotcha. I'm glad you got the chance to do that internship. What were you working on, by the way, while you were there?
So my first summer, I was on, not to be too specific because I can't give that detail out, but practically helping Google understand like the different language preferences at different locations. So I like kind of just took the data in of like, okay, this is what people talk. This is like the language preference that people have in different parts of the world and visualizing that. Very intern project, right? Data visualization, taking in data, all that stuff. They were pretty cool. And then the next project I worked on, I was at YouTube TV. So I was just kind of helping with catching any missed referral payments or referrals. So if you would like refer somebody, then I built a system that allowed you to like track like, okay, this person referred a friend, the friend paid for it, but they never received a point back. So I helped build like a pipeline for that. And so maybe it's up in production now.
When you said you worked on YouTube for a second there, I thought you was going to give me the keys to the game in terms of the YouTube algorithm and how I can make my stuff pop and go viral all the time. But it's cool, you know, hopefully next summer when you go back, you can kind of, you know, give me some cheat codes and everything like that. I kind of wanted to close it out by asking you, I know you guys recently hit a significant milestone. You got your first recurring customer. So congratulations and kudos to you guys. Tell me about the excitement, the experience of getting to this point where you've gone from an idea to proof of concept, working prototypes, and now you actually have paying customers on the site. How has this journey kind of been for you all so far?
It's honestly the high. That was a different high of like getting your first paying customer. Cause what also happened was I posted it on Twitter just saying like, oh, we just got our first paying customer, all caps, three exclamation marks. I remember it down to the T. And I was just posting to like, at the time I had like maybe 115 followers or something. And it just blew up on like Twitter, low key, like on what my friend likes to call LLC Twitter, like the business side of Twitter, right? And I think it got like 5,000 likes, 500 views, like a lot of comments, are just super supportive. Like it's kind of crazy how supportive they're like. People think a lot about the like bad side of Twitter, but there's so much love and support, especially from the Black community of entrepreneurs out there. But just in terms of like the actual roller coaster and getting to this point, it was weird because in the beginning it was kind of like, oh, okay, cool, we got this idea, and like it was like, all right, like we know we want to solve this. Like at least for Ben and I, we knew like, okay, it doesn't matter if this turns out to be anything. Like we just need this ourselves. Like it was like point blank, we're going to build, like, we were just kind of like, look, guys, we are building this for ourselves. And if some other people want it, great. If they don't, we learned a lot from it. So we kind of always took the point of view that like there was no risk to doing this, especially being in college. It was like, if we fail, we just go back to being college students. It wasn't like we were making a lot of money before and anything else. This is just great experience. Kind of like I mentioned of doing a project. But over time, as we like talked to more people and realized it was serious, like I said, it just kind of became a thing like we can really make an impact. And so, but there's something I read. It's called like the penny gap. It's getting your first customer is like it's the most difficult and hardest thing to do for a startup. And for us to have launched in December, like December 2nd, and to now have gotten our first customer by the end of January, in just 2 months, which it said it usually takes about 3 to maybe 18 months, was like just kind of mind blowing. It was just kind of mind blowing, but it just tells us that like we really found a real problem that people really have, and just overall, it's exciting. I wouldn't say there hasn't been a lot of downs yet because we're at the bottom of the journey right now. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. I know it's an incredible sense of like validation and really self-assurance that you're on the right track. So just stay at it, continue the progress and the work that you guys are doing. Last but not least, I also found out you guys have recently been accepted into a couple of accelerator programs. I know that's something that a lot of startup founders are excited and interested about. Do you have any advice for how others can potentially increase their chances of getting into these accelerator programs?
I would say like definitely. So one of the things that I read that kind of was really great when understanding like what do investors and obviously the people that are going to like pick you to go into the program, what they look for. And so if you think about a startup, it's like there's layers of risk that you have to peel off like an onion in order to reduce the discomfort and the risk that an investor will have when investing in your company, right? Like startups in themselves are inherently risky, but there's so many layers, and like one of the first ones is like feasibility, right? Like, can you and your team actually build this? And what I would say is, if you are a technical founder, or you have a technical founder on your team, that's awesome. But you guys need to like, it's not good enough to just have an idea, but getting out some MVP, even if it's not the full version of it, but really focusing on what is the one valuable thing that we are trying to build, the one feature that we are trying to build in this bigger grand scheme of the product that we have envisioned that can really show that we have the ability to build this. It's a feasibility risk. And so that's like the biggest thing I would say is like, if you can show that you actually have built a product, but then the second one is market risk, right? So what we were able to say when we applied was like, hey, we've already talked to, over 50 people. Like we've already talked to, at this point, we've gone over 100 people on our wait list. And so like, it was kind of hard for them to deny that like we were solving a real problem. And so what I would say is like, if you are a technical founder, and you have one on your team, try to build the product. If you don't, at least get up like something with a no code solution, or you should probably spend all your time trying to find someone that believes in the problem as much as you and that can join as a technical founder. And then second is proving traction. But I think if you do one of those two things, because if you're non-technical, you can like put up a landing page, drive people to it in an organic way, and be able to prove that like maybe you don't have the product right now, but you can show that there's people that want a product like this. And so that's like the two biggest advice is like you need to peel off, you need to reduce the risk that investors have whenever they're going to evaluate your company.
Nice. I like that about de-risking it. I've enjoyed this entire interview, man. You've done a heck of a job. I'm really excited and proud of you guys and what you guys have been able to accomplish. And I'm really looking forward to what you guys have next in the future. For people that are interested, want to follow your journey, keep up with you, potentially even invest in you guys one day, how can people kind of keep up with you and follow your journey that you guys are on?
For sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Armel W Talla. And then you can follow us on our Twitter and our TikTok so Twitter is ClipsAI HQ. And then our TikTok is just clips.ai. My TikTok is also armel.talla. And last, but if you just want to reach out to me directly, very open. I'm not that big, so it's not like my email's getting flooded right now, but you can find me at armel@clipsai.com. So I appreciate you letting me do that.
Yeah, man. No, I gotta let the people know where to find you. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are interested in following your journey. I have no doubt that you and your team will be successful, not only in ClipsAI, but whatever is beyond that. So I'm really looking forward to following your journey and keeping up with you guys. And thank you so much for coming on the platform, blessing me and the audience with all the knowledge, the insight, and sharing your experience with us. So I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you for having me. This is a great podcast. I love what you're doing, man.
Appreciate it. And for you guys, the audience, I appreciate you guys watching and staying tuned. I know you guys have gained some value from this. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe. I don't want you to miss out on this and other great interviews that are coming out soon. So stay tuned. And other than that, we'll see you all next week. So stay tuned. Peace.